How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Go, go, go. It's me and Dr. Joe. What do you think?
Not bad.
Is it growing?
It's a rebranding, that's for sure.
Is it growing on you?
It's sort of a restranding in many ways.
It's it's a hostile rebranding, I think.
Hostile?
Yeah,
Is
like
this
a
hostile takeover?
Yes. Not a takeover.
So it's
a branding takeover.
It's going to be Joe Schrand and Mark Stiles.
No.
No?
So it's all about the rolls off the tongue. Plus, we're having trouble socially because there's other Dr. Joe shows.
True. That is true.
So if we are able to tag me and Dr. Joe, this is me, and then me can be replaced at any point in time.
Well, no,
right?
You will never be replaced, Mark. It's irreplaceable, really.
Think about it, though.
But the me could be any of our guests.
Aha.
Right?
Aha.
Me and Dr. Joe.
So you want to go solo?
Nope, I don't, because otherwise it would be me and Dr. Joe and Attorney Stiles.
Nah, that sounds awful.
No,
attorney lawyer.
Lawyer Stiles.
Yuck.
Counselor Stiles.
How about me and Dr. Joe?
I like that.
Down by the schoolyard.
I think we're doing that. And because the me can be not only you, but our guest.
Right.
Let's get right to it.
We're going to go right there.
Would you introduce our guests?
Oh, buddy.
For tonight.
Guests.
Yes.
I am honored. I am honored to be sitting next to a really inspiring individual who has had a really amazing career in the law. I'm blessed to know him as a law student. We went to law school together, and we, the community of that law school, are super proud of this guy because he had an amazing career as a private attorney and is now representing all of Cape Cod and all of the islands as their district attorney. And what he's doing is he's doing innovative, amazing, and inspiring things, such as creating separate segregated courts so that, not every person who's accused needs to be lumped in together, right? There's specifics, right? Like words matter, personalities, individuals, histories, their I am matters. Let's focus on that. And one of those is the recovery court. So I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that, Dr. Joe, the mental health court and the veterans court. And it's so smart. And I saw him again at the Drug Story Theater presentation down at Mass Maritime, and I did not know that he was the district attorney of Cape Cod and the islands, and I was excited to see that and share that with some of our law school community. Can I introduce, please, the district attorney, Rob Galibois?
Yeah.
Wow. Can't wait to meet this guy.
Listen, you're doing amazing things.
You really
Be proud. Receive that affirmation because you're working hard, my brother.
Yeah, really. And Drug Story Theater was so honored to have you there, really as our speaker and guest, and it made a huge impression. So we truly appreciate your time.
I really appreciated the opportunity to visit with you that evening. And again, I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm looking forward to the talk.
It's great. And you have brought
Yes.
some
We
of your
brought
staff
people.
here.
We brought people.
Who you
How do you
got?
want to go? How do you want to go down the batting lineup here?
You do it. You're the leader.
All
buddy.
right.
You
So we'll start off with my immediate left. Her name is Alyssa Goldhaber, and I will let her introduce herself.
Okay. Hi.
Hello, Alyssa.
Good evening. So my name is Alyssa Goldhaber, and I just came to the Cape and Islands DA's office 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. I come from Boston, where I worked as a child protection prosecutor for almost 17 years, doing child sexual abuse cases and severe child physical abuse cases.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to meet this guy and his team and was quickly convinced to move and join as his deputy second assistant district attorney. So I came just in the beginning of April, and it's been great.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
So as the deputy second assistant, she's part of our leadership, if you will. We have 3 people kind of right there at the top that are constantly advising me and picking up the more serious and challenging cases, and Alyssa is one of those 3. So we're very fortunate to have her in the office.
That's terrific.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That must be amazing practice to be working with the kids, and
It's
that's
great.
really powerful stuff, really heavy stuff that you're dealing with
The
there.
best stuff, the most
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah.
They're the most resilient,
Yeah.
the best role models.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we know with the research on resiliency, for every resilient child, there's been at least one adult who's seen them as valuable.
Yes.
Yep.
That's how powerful this IC domain is of the IM.
And oftentimes, that's the victim witness advocates. That's the district attorney's office.
That's right.
These folks are wearing many hats.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Welcome. Who else we got here?
So who's going to come up next? Right behind me, we've got Danielle Whitney. Danielle's been in the office for a little while, about 15 years or more, I think, and I'll let her speak to her resume, but I will introduce her title. She is our Director of Community Programs, and some people might be familiar with her name because she's also our press person. So
wow.
she is out there a lot representing our office. Without further ado, Danielle Whitney.
Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. As Rob said, my name is Danielle Whitney, and I've been with the office for 17 years, just past June. I kind of refer to myself as a leftover. Rob was gracious enough to keep me over from the old administration, which I'm very grateful for. I started off in the office as support staff, administrative assistant. I transitioned into victim witness, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I was assigned to the child abuse unit for over 10 years. And then I did a lateral transfer into community programs, and that's where I am now.
And you decided to stay even though this guy took over? I think that says a lot about this guy.
I begged out loud, begged her to stay. Danielle is incredibly talented, and she's so attached to so many different stakeholders throughout the Cape and the Islands. It was definitely a no-brainer asking her to stay, and we're very grateful that she did.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And who else?
So next coming up, I'd like to touch upon a little bit her role in the office because it was a huge piece of me running for this position. If we have a minute or two for me to get into this.
Yes.
All right. So running for the job, there are 2 areas that I thought resonated wherever I went. The first had to do with mental health, and we can maybe touch upon that a little bit later. But the other one had to do with the need for this particular office, the DA's office, to delve more deeply into the community regarding community engagement type stuff. So what I spoke about was, should I be elected, I would create a brand new position in the office called the Community Engagement Officer. And essentially that person, I joked half-heartedly, wouldn't have an office, would have a car, ferry tickets and a cell phone. And their job was to be in the community all day, every day, and report directly back to me. So lo and behold, we were successful in the campaign. We won, and I very much wanted to honor that promise. And I created the position, and there was a woman in the office that for about 12, 14 years or so herself, and ironically, she was part of the interview panel of the plethora of candidates we had for this new position. But just, going through that process, we're like, doesn't have the je ne sais quoi that we're looking for. And lo and behold, the person was right in front of us.
Isn't that
and
funny?
it was unbelievable. So I'd like to introduce now our first, and I hope only, community engagement officer, and I plan on being in the office for quite a long time. Her name is Kelly Quealy, and she can certainly speak about what she's working on right now. So without further ado, Kelly Quealy.
Hi.
Hello, Kelly.
How are you? Like Rob said, I also have been in the office for 14 years now, so previous administration to the new one. And I was on the interview panel. I thought I'd be a lifelong admin. I had no intention. I had actually always said adamantly that there were probably 2 departments in our office that I would never work in. One would be fiscal and one would be community programs, because they just feel so outside of my wheelhouse, just from what I was used to. And then I was sitting on in the interview panel, and the candidates that were coming in, I think the most important question we were asking them was, how do you think that the DA's office is perceived in the community? And they were unable to answer that question. And I could tell you, and I think that it was negatively for quite some time, or that people see us very much as we throw people in jail and we have very little empathy, or we don't care about rehabilitation, we don't care about being proactive, we don't care about preventative care. So because of that, and because we kind of then looked at each other one day and I was like, I think I do understand that. Can I try this? And he put his faith in me, which I am more than thankful for, and I do hope that I will be the only one. I will
Me too.
reiterate that as well. And so what I have to say is, actually, Rob has been he's always extremely receptive. So we're very lucky to work for someone that we can kind of bat back and forth ideas. But his original plan, his original idea was to set up coalitions, so small coalitions, 6 to 12 people probably in each town, made up of volunteers of all of the 23 towns. So we talked about within the Cape and Islands, and each one having, even though it is all the Cape and Islands and we're all encompassed in the Cape and Islands, each town has very specific needs or has very things that are just specific to only that one community. And then how do we find out what that is? So we create me, and I go to these towns, and I go and I meet and hopefully meet with people who want to come and tell me and help me bridge the gap however we can. Use our office, use our resources to bridge gaps where we're missing them, right? Because, I mean, we miss things too, so.
So you're the CEO.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
she
is
is.
absolutely what I am. Yes.
Humble she is.
Yes, very.
So that's so important to be able to reach out to other people and say, here's who we really are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what our sponsors do as well. They reach out, they say who we are, here's who we are, and with that in mind, I'd like to listen to who they are. So we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Hey folks, thank you for listening to the Dr. Joe Show. We've been investigating whether or not we want to bring sponsors into our podcast. What are your thoughts? Do you know somebody who might be a good partner with the Dr. Joe Show, who may want to align their product or service with the Dr. Joe Show? Think about it.
Hey, Larry. Welcome back. I'm going to see you tomorrow morning.
Hi, Larry.
We're back with the Dr. Joe Show with the District Attorney's Office on the Cape and the Islands, talking about some amazing initiatives that they're doing and being proactive and helping. It's great.
Yeah, we're so honored to have you here. Just folks know, tomorrow morning is Feel Good Friday with Mark Stiles. So
And Larry's in today. And Larry's in tomorrow, right?
Tune into that too,
No?
folks.
It'll be Rob one more day. I'm in for him next week.
Oh, you're next week. Okay, got it.
So there are so many initiatives. I'm sure there are many things to be proud of, but where would you like to start, Mr. Attorney?
So just before the break there, I mentioned, along with community engagement, I thought the most popular, consistent topic that folks always wanted to talk about was regarding mental health. And we were a little unique down the Cape and the Islands when I was campaigning 2022. There's a specialty court session known as the Mental Health Court. And for your listeners that may be a little unfamiliar with it, what it is professionals in the field come right into the courtroom and work with the struggling defendant to identify what's the core issue here. And as we all know, once you make that identification, then you can try to treat that issue. And if you do that, you have a greater likelihood of success of reducing recidivism, therefore making us all safer. So it's just yet another avenue for public safety. We didn't have a mental health court session on the Cape and Islands. Virtually, I believe every other county across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts did. So wherever I went, I would highlight the fact that, hey, this specialty court session is out there for all the other residents, but not us. And it picked up a lot of momentum over the course of the campaign. And when we prevailed, I got sworn into office. Got to talk a little bit with the presiding justice down in Barnstable District Court. His name is John Julian. Any specialty court session is a product of the trial court. The district attorney's office can advocate for one, but they can't actually establish it. So we're very grateful that he was all about it, and Judge Julian and the trial court launched a mental health court in Barnstable. Now, the Barnstable District Court serves 3 towns in the Mid-Cape area, Ann Arbor, Cape Sandwich, Barnstable, and Yarmouth. We do have other district courts, and we are able to transfer cases from the other district courts should there be a particular defendant that would meet the criteria to enter into the mental health court. They can transfer the case so the services can be provided. So quite honestly, that was a huge accomplishment, I thought. I mean, again, it was the trial court that set it up, but it was a desperate need, I thought, down in the Cape and Islands, and I was just so incredibly grateful to see it launched in the first year that I happened to be in office.
What does that look like in your office, the change of culture around, drug cases and recovery and proactivity when there's actually that collaboration with the trial court?
I think it was well received. So when they were in the process of creating the court, they, of course, reached out to the office saying, hey, you're going to name someone as your mental health court prosecutor. And I went to the staff, and I threw it out there, and very quickly a woman named Shauna Suve raised her hand. She had a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Nice.
Yep, and she had very much had an interest, and she also happened to come from a law enforcement family. Her dad's a longtime police officer for a department down in the Cape. So she is our initial mental health court prosecutor. It was launched, I think it was last September. So the docket is growing organically. As the services are being provided and the vendors are there and working with people. There's a screening process. Typically, if an attorney feels a client would benefit from this specialty court, they bring it to our attention. There is a meeting between the judge, probation officers, our prosecutor, and caseworkers to say, hey, is this really a good candidate? And that's how someone gets screened in.
So help me with that, because I think for people who are not familiar with the law, prosecutor sounds like somebody who is against the person in front of them. Is that not the case here?
So it is an adversarial system. That's just the way it's designed. That said, there are many roads to public safety, and that is ultimately my job. My position is to protect our communities. So like I said, traditionally we all know of jail and prison and things of that sort. And I want to be clear, there are occasions when that needs to happen.
Sure.
But more often than not, and I've seen different studies as high as 60%, high as 80%. Those that come through the criminal justice system, they're in the district court session primarily. That's typically the misdemeanor court and the minor felonies, if you will. And they're there for certain things, bad judgment, not bad intent, but bad judgment. And how did you get there through that bad judgment? Is it a mental health thing? Is it a substance use thing? Things of that sort. So, trying to identify what ensnarled you. How'd you get into the system? Then, as I mentioned earlier, you have a better chance of keeping them out of the system if you can make the identification and actually treat it. It's a real small percentage of people that are truly evil and need to get punished for going to jail or prison. So we're fortunate. We got a great team of prosecutors. That is the label, prosecutor. But they definitely try to see the big picture as best as they can and work with every defendant. Every case is unique, and we have to consistently remind ourselves of that. You just can't have a blanket policy.
So, Dr. Joe, to add some color to that, the district attorney's office represents the people, right? They're representing the people, the community of citizens in their constituency, right? So, in a defense, where there's a defense attorney, they're representing that individual, and they're going to do everything to win. It's more of a commonsensical approach also, right? Like, we're not here to hurt people as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, as someone who's helping police, the citizens and protect the citizens. We're here to do what makes sense, which is really why these community engagements and these specific courts are so vitally important, because you're dialing in on specialties, you're dialing in on, the nuance of it. You're not lumping, you're not creating this pack of others, right? These folks are human beings, and the district attorney is really, that last bastion of hope, where they help facilitate what happens with these people. So, a lot of people were focusing in on that Karen Reed trial the last few months, like it was the biggest soap opera in history, and whether or not, the defense was doing the right thing and the prosecutor was doing the right thing. The prosecutor was representing the people of Norfolk County, not, the police departments in Norfolk County. It was, what do they call that? The SODI defense? Some other dude did it?
Yeah.
Defense. The defense has a very, very, very different role than the government, right? This is the government helping the people. And that needs to be clarified, especially after this Karen Reed trial.
Right, agreed. And I think, there's unfortunate association between criminality and mental health and addiction, and we have so many people who really need the help.
Yes.
Who are then just sort of dismissed as bad people.
Right.
And it sounds to me like you're really addressing that stigma and reframing it.
We are trying, and you mentioned a veterans court. So we've had a lot of conversation about trying to open up a veterans court, and again, this would have to be the result of the trial court wanting it. And I'm getting a sense that, I think they are moving in that direction. There are veterans courts throughout Massachusetts. We do not have one down on the Cape and the Islands. The veterans court was basically born out of Buffalo, New York. That's where they first launched one. And in Massachusetts, the first model was in Dedham, if I remember correctly, and they have a very well-regarded veterans court. So there's kind of a little curiosity with the Cape and the Islands. We have the most veterans in our county than any other county in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we don't have a veterans court. And we all know, veterans bring their own unique experiences to the table. So what's really beautiful about a veterans court is veterans that live in the community can come in as volunteers and work right there in the courtroom with the struggling veteran. As I mentioned, each veteran has a unique background, but they tend to be more willing to open up, if you will, with another veteran. Yeah. So we think it's, a really good idea to try to launch one on the Cape and the Islands. I've talked to a caseworker with the VA. She has identified a good number of cases that she feel would be good to put into this veterans court session. And we've had some preliminary conversations. So I think over some time, I think the trial court will come around to opening up one, and I'm pretty excited about that too.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
The same thing. It's like these unique circumstances.
Yeah.
Let's focus in and help. We're not here to. Like you said, yes. There's the evil. There's that dark evil where those folks need to be taken out of society. For the most part, how can we help? Right.
And the show that precedes us, Veterans Voice, I'm sure that Greg Brasso and his team would love to have a discussion.
He met Wolfie.
Yeah, I met Wolfie. Yes, I did. I met Wolfie.
It's on. It's happening.
Oh yeah, we'll get together.
And I know that they're listening to me because they keep telling me that they listen to the show on the way home. And what's always interesting about that is they have amazing sponsors on their show. I get to listen to them. We also do. They're not quite the same, but they're still pretty good. So we have our own veteran sponsors who help us out.
Okay.
So with that in mind,
Excellent.
We'll take a listen to our soldiers. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Hey, folks, welcome back. So any thoughts? Do you listen to other podcasts? Do you see how they do the sponsors? Is there a way that they're utilizing sponsors that you enjoy or you don't enjoy? I listen to SmartList, and I really enjoy how the co-hosts share the voiceover for the product or service. It's really funny for the most part, but it's unique. It's them really endorsing. Does that work? What do you think?
We are back.
And me and Larry.
Oh, what happened to Dr. Joe?
I'm here.
Me and Dr. Joe, we're back. We're back. Live in studio, WATD. And for those who can't get near their FM radio, you can always stream WATD95.9.com. We're here with the District Attorney's Office, the leadership of the Cape and the Islands, and we're hearing wonderful things about the magical things they're doing there. And they're also, we've talked off air a little bit, reducing some important numbers about drug use down there.
Very
Let's talk
interesting.
about that. I love progress.
Please, let's hear.
So, like all the other districts throughout Massachusetts, we have recovery courts, formerly known as drug courts. We have one in Barnstable. Again, Judge John Julian's been running it for about 22 years now. And then Judge Lisa Edmonds over in Falmouth has been running one in her session for the last few years. And I do want to also put out there that I was just pleasantly surprised one day last fall. I went into the lobby for the judge in Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard. And I knew there was a need out there for a recovery court on Martha's Vineyard, but candidly, there was a possible issue of vendors to provide services, if we were to open up a court like that. So I walk into the lobby and I said, "Hey, Judge, got a crazy idea. How about a recovery court here on Martha's Vineyard?" Now, Martha's Vineyard is a court that's only in session 3 days a week, to give you a sense of the docket list, so to speak. It's not as heavy as the other district courts.
And just for folks who are, remember that we have an international audience. So Martha's Vineyard is a small island off the coast of Cape Cod.
Yes.
Okay, so it's an island.
It's an island. And it is in my district. And Judge Barnes was all about it. He shared with me that before being a judge on Martha's Vineyard, he had opened up recovery courts in other courthouses where he used to work. So he was quite excited. And then he began working with his chief probation officer. A couple months go by, I get a phone call saying, "We're going to do this." And they were somehow able to get the necessary vendors together. And it was February, I believe, of this year. Yes, they opened up a recovery court. It was really nice. So here we are in year 2 now, and we have another recovery court in the district in Martha's Vineyard. So I truly believe the recovery courts are working. They have dedicated people providing these services to work with the defendants that are, again, ensnarled in the court process. And we, as an office, started doing something that wasn't done before I got here. The business people, if you will, and the drug trade, when they get caught up, they're usually charged with charges known as trafficking. And that's when you have someone charged with a trafficking level, you know these folks are in the business of pushing the poison. So there's actually a statute available for prosecutors. It's a very useful tool that if someone's charged with trafficking in fentanyl, we can try to hold them without bail.
Good.
So as business people, they keep the bank account waiting for the rainy day. They know they're going to get charged at some point. So they stash some money aside so they'd be able to bail themselves out when the rain starts. But with this, you don't get a cash bail. You are held without bail. So this was a practice that was being used by other DA's offices. And the one thing I offered as a candidate when I was running for the job was I practiced all throughout Massachusetts and a few different states. So I got to see what the other DA's offices were doing. And I offered that to the constituency down in the Cape and Islands, saying, this is what I see going on that I think works well. Let's do this down here. So when we got into office, we started doing that. Every time someone was charged with trafficking fentanyl, we'd move for a dangerousness hearing, and we're very grateful that the judges were identifying with what we were trying to do and much more often than not agreeing with us and holding these people so they stay behind bars. Now, why do I highlight this? We got a report produced for 2023, the Kelly Research Foundation, and it revealed that 2023 is my first full year in office. The non-fatal overdoses were down 10% from 2022, and the fatal overdoses were down 7% from 2022. Now, can I draw a direct line between our practice of holding drug traffickers and these stats? I can't, but I think a reasonable inference can be drawn that since we started doing this, the numbers are at least going in a good direction.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
That is very exciting. Just curious, how long can you hold someone with this statute?
So while the case is pending in the district court, the ceiling is 120 days, but there's ways that can be extended a little bit. And when we indict them, we can hold them up to 180 days. So that gives us time to put the case forward and push them towards trial. There are certain times when cases might get continued a little bit, but we try to, if that happens, we try to say, hey, it's the defense looking for these particular continuances or whatever, and toll the time limit of 180 days or 120 days. So our goal is to always be ready within that time frame, so we can proceed ahead and hopefully, get the conviction in these types of circumstances. Keep them in jails and prisons beyond the 120 or 180.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's admirable, and it probably is having an effect. I'm sure you guys also are distributing Narcan as well to help with overdoses.
Yeah, but everyone here in this room is also aware of xylazine.
Right.
And,
True.
Narcan doesn't work on that?
It's kind of resistant.
Yeah.
So xylazine showed up on the scene down in the Cape, I think it's April of 23, somewhere in that vicinity. Our first case came out of the Falmouth area. But now it's prevalent. It's just the Narcan doesn't really work so well on it.
Nope.
And it's further frustrating our efforts.
Yeah.
What is xylazine?
It's another sort of opioid medication, but it's got this very strange mechanism of action. A lot of people also will inject it, and it will literally eat away your skin. Mm-hmm. So it causes an epidermal necrosis, which is a fancy way of saying eat away at your skin. It's horrible.
So
and it's mixed a lot with fentanyl as well, and that's why the Narcan can certainly reduce the fentanyl, but people are still struggling. We're not sure of its lethality in the same way as fentanyl, but it is a nasty, nasty drug.
Is it a tranquilizer?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So it's
like a horse tranquilizer.
Right.
Is it a less expensive heroin? I mean, what is it that is it just different, like methamphetamine?
Yeah,
different. Okay,
but it's that same sort of tranquilizer effect. So you're mellowing out, and that's the problem. Is so much, the street drugs are laced now with fentanyl, xylazine, and it's been a real problem. But if you're like holding traffickers.
What about bad guys?
What about the rest of their team, though? Because it's probably not just one person. Do they then bring you the other folks as well? I mean, it's
a constant challenge. And we all see it, in the newspaper on any given day. You'll read about the big bust, and then next week there's yet another big bust.
Wow. So they're the traffic,
maggots.
But the other folks who are coming through the recovery court are people who also have been using and are then committing crimes in order to continue their substance use.
That's often a pattern, right? To get the money necessary, right?
Yeah. But what I'm hearing is that you're recognizing addiction is not a crime, but can lead to them. That's one of my phrases.
Right.
It can lead to crime. And the addiction itself is not the crime.
We try to identify, too, a lot of people will engage in the selling of narcotics, again, to support their own habit. And we have ways of trying to determine who is actually doing that as opposed to the true business person that is, just in it for the profit.
Well, they're rarely seen, right? I mean, that's why they've got the mules.
They provide layers. That's one of the things we look for, how many layers are involved to insulate themselves.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's a heavy task right there.
Are you having fun? I mean, how did
Yes, I'm having a blast. And the reason why I am is because of the people that came with me. So I'd like them to start to do a little more talking here, because I mean this, I have an outstanding staff. And it's one of those things where getting this particular position was a professional dream of mine for a couple decades, quite honestly. But now that I'm here, they're the reason why I'm happy to come to work in the morning.
Yeah, man.
So let's hear more from these people so they can talk about the community stuff they're doing, the great investigations that Alyssa's doing. So I'm going to put down my headpiece here and let these people talk.
Well, we got Alyssa here at the mic, so let's hear a little bit. Thank you, District Attorney.
I can kind of segue a little bit about the drug court thing.
Yes.
In my first, week or two here, I went with the district attorney to a meeting about drug court, and then I was privileged to go to a drug court graduation ceremony. And what a
cool.
special day. There were several women who had completed successfully the program, which involved treatment and success and different sort of landmarks that they had successfully hit, and along the way had, become on hugging terms with most of the members of the courthouse and had grown so much as human beings. And it was really just one of the most special things I've ever seen. The court had a cake for them and gifts and flowers, and they were so respected and celebrated through the success of this process. It was really special to see.
That's such a wonderful acknowledgement to recognize how difficult this struggle is, and to
be valued,
and to be
Dr.
valued.
Joe, to be shown that value.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming to the point where they feel really good.
Yeah.
And how great would that be to be part of that?
Yeah.
The value, seeing that success.
And this is the district attorney sending prosecutors to defendants who are achieving success. So I think that's something to be celebrated and noted.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And I'm also hearing the incorporation of these folks into the next round for other people. So you've got the veterans and their lived experience working with other veterans. And I'm assuming that you've got folks who are recovering from their substance use as peers and helping other people. It's that's the model, right? No one does it alone, but that is the model, is to be able to bring the people with the lived experience in to help those people who are still on their path.
And then being proactive, right,
Yeah.
Dr. Joe? So this community engagement that they're doing is so important, and teaming up with folks like Drug Story Theater to get to those youths early when it matters most.
Yeah.
Right? Drug Story Theater, folks who are listening, most of you know the Drug Story Theater is a group that Dr. Joe created that takes kids who are in recovery and they present a live play or a recorded play to the community of their peers. So to these kids from 6th to 12th grade are watching their peers. They're not being told and pointed by an elder. This is their peers who have gone through this, and the DA's office on the Cape and Islands has seen the value in this, and is the community engagement piece, that proactive piece. Like, how do we make it so these people aren't ever going to court?
That's right.
Right.
And that is, I appreciate you bringing that up, Mark. I mean, that is, the slogan of Drug Story Theater: the treatment of one becomes a prevention of many.
Yeah.
And I want to be sure that we prevent our sponsors from ever abandoning us, as so many people with substance use have been abandoned by others. So with that in mind, we will hear from our very loyal sponsors. We'll be right back with with me and Dr. Joe.
Yeah, there, buddy.
Hey, welcome back. And again, we're super grateful for you listening to the Dr. Joe Show. If you have anyone that you think might be a good sponsor, shoot us an email at drjoepodcast@gmail.com. DRJOE podcast@gmail.com. Give us your thoughts about the show, too. We're wondering, are we talking to the trees, or are people really gaining value in this? Please let us know. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey, what do you say? Here we are, back with me and Dr. Joe in the DA's office in the Cape and Islands, talking about wonderful, amazing things. The future is bright. I'm glad I brought my shades.
Yeah, nice.
That was a good one.
No, he really, he sometimes makes a spectacle of himself.
Oh, yeah, baby. Bring it. Clap it back. Come on.
Ba-doom, boom.
Come on. So Drug Story Theater.
Yeah.
Proactive.
And
DA's office.
Want to tell us?
County.
Yeah, we had the privilege of witnessing it ourselves down at Mass Maritime. Was it in May? We were definitely very impressed by that. So impressed that we've invited them to come and present their show to our back to school kickoff, which is coming up in August. So we're excited to have Dr. Joe there to talk about his program and that innovative, non-traditional way that kids are able to, express themselves when they're struggling. We do a lot of work within the schools. The schools are great. We have a great network with all of our school districts on the Cape and Islands, and I think being able to advertise that and showcase the great work that you can do, maybe they'll welcome it into their schools. A lot of feedback that we get with presentations that we currently do is that kids want to be not talked at. They want to be, a non-traditional, different kind of out-of-the-box type way to have them express themselves and have it be a resource for them, I think is great. So I'm excited to see how received it all is on the Cape.
We're very excited to be doing that. Thank you so much for the honor, really. But this is what Drug Free Theater is about. Is really it's peer to peer. It's not, some old guy like me talking to them,
Cracking eggs.
No, not that it. But when there's somebody that they can relate to, that is a peer with that lived experience, it's incredibly powerful. We actually have a paper published with my colleague Andreas Martin out of Yale to show just that, how peer-to-peer is statistically effective in helping other kids. So we really appreciate it. But again, I think it speaks to the DA's willingness to be innovative and to work with communities and to work outside. It's not even a box anymore, right? There is no box.
No box.
We have to be able to be creative. From an IM point of view, if you think about it, all crime is based on the same thing, which is devaluing somebody else. Would you agree with that? That's what crime is. One person devalues another person and is then held responsible for that, which goes to show how important value is to every human being. Think about every person you've ever met. That is the common thread that binds us. We just want to feel valued by somebody else. And it's wonderful to hear that your office is really embracing that and going into the community. Can you talk about the community efforts that you have, our CEO?
Yes, no, absolutely. It's actually, as you're talking about that, I bring up a story that I first started into community engagement, and there was a man who had sought shelter in the bus station in the court parking lot. It's a public parking lot, so it does tend to attract people who maybe live in their cars or stay there overnight or aren't able to get out of the village, because we are in Barnstable Village, so it's not always easily accessible. And he came to the office and he wanted to talk to someone, because a lot of times people just want to be heard. They don't necessarily have, like, touching on what you're saying, they want to feel like they're going into somewhere and that someone is receiving what they're saying, which Rob and I have talked about with the whole community engagement and the DA and us, is anybody can come to these coalitions and tell me, but I have to go back to him and he has to make some of these things come to fruition for people to continuously come and want to tell us, feel like they're heard, feel like what their concerns. So Michael came in one day and wanted to be heard, and he shared with us that in the community of homeless people that he shares every day with, that a hardship that they face is if they come to court and they do the correct thing, right, or societally the correct thing, what you need to do, and remove your warrants and do everything the right way, that they can't always make it back to the shelter in time to check in for their to get shelter for that night, right? So you're putting someone between a rock and a hard place. They're saying, if I go and I do the play by the rules, then I'm not necessarily setting myself up for anything good later on.
Interesting.
So I never would have known that had he not come in and just talked to me on a whim, right? So that, I think, is part of what we're saying with people being valued, that then after that, then, I'm talking to Danielle, and we happened to have a meeting, I think it was like that week or right after, with Duffy, which is the local health and center for our homeless population. And they were like, oh, well, did you know that there's, programs in other counties called homeless courts where they help people get favorable disposition so that they don't have warrants hanging over their head. And in that situation, they can go get their housing, they can go get their food stamps, because we dismiss cases for, larceny that happened 25 years ago that you're never going to collect the $500 court costs on anyway. And so why are we holding people up in their development for, frivolous things? So I guess that, I think, is what has become so important about community engagement, is that to actually listen to what people need and then deliver, right? And then use the DA's office for what we can. It's a resource. We have all of these resources at our fingertips. Why wouldn't we be what bridges that for people?
And it's so important. We're very fortunate to have a chief of police here, Chief Tavares, who is into community. And, for so many people, police, district attorney sounds like an opposition. And this really is reframing and changing that paradigm. It's so important. I think the other part is if you think you need to be protected, it means there's danger. So we need to reframe that as well. We can have a really safe community where everyone is valued. Every time you remind someone of their value, you increase your own value. And it really sounds like that's part of what your whole mission is and the whole focus is. Yeah.
Definitely.
With that in mind, I'm going to bring the DA back in to ask the two questions. So the IM, as you know, there are 4 domains. It's basically saying we're doing the best we can in response to your home environment, your social domain, your biological, and the IC, how I see myself, how I think other people see me. Because these domains interact, a small change can have a big effect. We don't need to change everything. Granted, you're making a lot of big changes down there, but given what we're talking about, what small change can you recommend to our listeners?
Small change? Pay attention to your neighbor. That's what I would offer.
Tell me why.
If you have an opportunity to make some observations of what's going on with your neighbor, then I think there's opportunity there for you yourself to grow and maybe help someone else grow as well. So that's what just came to the top of my head. A small change. I don't think it takes a lot of effort to kind of pay attention what's going on in your own little piece of the world. So that's my offering. Pay attention to your neighbor, and
Beautiful.
It's great.
Yeah.
And imagine if everybody did that.
Yeah, and it's paying attention, not looking for
Correct.
crime,
Right.
but how can I help?
Right.
Exactly.
What do you need? Right.
Is there a struggle going on that
Signs of distress.
either I can help or
Yeah.
point you in a direction?
Oh, I think that's great. I remember a specific time when I had somebody putting up a for sale sign, like a yard sale sign on my lawn, which I didn't get permission. Went out, spoke with him. I wasn't angry. I wanted to know what was going on. He got very defensive right away, thinking that I was going to say, get that sign off. But I said, no, what's going on here? Turned out that his wife had died a few years ago. She had all these things that he was reluctant to get rid of, but knew that it was time. So if I had gone in and said, get your sign out of there, I would have missed that story. So I love that. Pay attention, to your neighbor.
Yes.
Notice what they're doing. It's great. Second truth of the IM. Everyone's got one. Everyone is interested through their IC domain what you think or feel about them, which affects their biological domain, because, it feels different if you feel respected or disrespected. You're part of someone's home or social domain. So the second truth, you control no one. You influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. District Attorney, what kind of influence do you want to be?
As District Attorney. So this is kind of close to a question that I got a little while ago that candidly put me back on my heels. I hadn't gotten something like this, and this is new. So I was asked, what is the ideal office for you? So, and again, keeping in mind, it's about public safety and how do you get there. So what I thought of was, presently we have 26 prosecutor positions in my office. We have 3 community people. And I rely heavily on my community people. Danielle and Kelly are 2 of the 3. So in my mind, if I could have an equal number of community positions as I do courtroom prosecutors, that's the way I think I could make the best impact on my community in the Cape and Islands by getting out there and, 1, of course, trying to prevent crime from ever happening. Right. 2, if something's going on, we can try to figure out why something's going on. So that's my best answer on that one.
No, it's powerful. And do you feel you're achieving what you want?
I'm going to say I'm trying to remove myself, take away the bias. I honestly think we are. We're trying really hard, and we are going down, I candidly believe, a good path. We are doing what we're saying about community engagement. We're talking about trying to get these specialty courts, work with the trial court to get them rolling. So I would offer that, yes, we are following through with what we said we were going to do. And I, quite honestly, I welcome the pressure and the spotlight because we have to keep doing it. So,
well, you're making the world a safer place for all of us.
Thank you.
And for that,
Great
I really
team.
appreciate it. So,
Better communities.
better communities, safer
Strong
communities.
leaders who understand
And
community
when you feel
engagement.
valued, you don't need to devalue somebody else. That's what the IM is saying.
Right.
We don't need to take from somebody else to gain. Every time you remind someone of their value, you increase your own. That makes us all safer. Thank you so much, all of you,
Yes.
for being here tonight.
Don't forget, folks, Saturday,
you.
July 13th, Veterans Voice Music Festival down at Pageant Field in
Coming up
Quincy.
this Saturday. Be there. Thanks, folks.